when a new show comes up and you're like, oh, this seems interesting, or you hear about a show and you're like, I'll watch this. Like, how do you even decide what to watch? Like, I think all of us, we only have so many hours in a day. It's like, I can probably watch one new show this month. Like, what's it going to be? Do you have any like discerning, like, how do you pick?
Yeah.
Also, what do you like? Victor's watching Rings of Power, baby.
Yeah.
That's all it's you.
I'm interested in story, the writing of it, and like obviously the players that are in there too. I think is a huge part. Like I started watching Peaky Blinders, one of the best shows. It's the writing is amazing, the storyline's great, the actors in there. But I had to stop watching it. I'm like, man, this is so freaking violent, and there's just boobs everywhere. So I'm like, I just can't doing what I do, and I just don't want to. This is not good for my brain, right? And so I'm like, I had to stop watching it, even though I really enjoyed the show and the storyline. I'm like, I can't consume that because it'll affect me too much to consume. And so I do like comedy. I do, one of my favorite movies is Inception, and I do like brainy things as well, and so I think that's how I kind of gauge it. You can't, like Victor was saying, you can't just go off ratings, because I've watched some awful PG-13 things, but I've watched rated R movies. It's not so much rated R because of language, but because of content and what the story is about, right? And so you can't just base it off all on a rating.
Common Sense Media is a great website to help.
Oh
yeah, I honestly think you should be doing a tiny bit of research before you jump into what you're viewing. Like IMDb or whatever, like that's usually a go-to. Just like, okay, what am I stepping into? What does R mean? And so I want to understand that. I would, similar to Marco, it's a pretty baseline of like, I'd be a little more nuanced with language. I'd be a little more nuanced with violence. I think there's a place for some of that, and the story about a war, it's like there's no way around that. Nudity would be pretty objective for me. There's also an interesting, like, we talk a lot about the kind of the morality grid of like what's moral to view, but then I think as Jesus followers, this is also this other, like almost like a matrix of like there's this other line of, if God is like a creative God, if it's in his nature and everything he does is excellent and perfect, and like how he created the world, and we're image bearers of that, I think there's almost this grid that I think in discerning what to view is, if you're dedicating time, there's almost something to say about like what's the most God glorifying art is good art. Like, I think Christians should also have a standard of like, we just don't watch like cheap, lame storytelling that's regurgitated over and over. Like, we should be also more sophisticated in the arts of like, we pine for good storytelling, good display of art, great cinematography, because those better display. Now I understand some of that's just a budget thing and what people can pull off, but like, for example, like there's a lot of like, be careful what I say here, but like kind of American nostalgic-y Christian art that gets regurgitated a lot and that's Christian art, and it's like the exhaust pipe of culture redone in this very hallmarky way. And and I'm very like skeptical of Christian art, but then I see like things like The Chosen, and I'm like, this was actually well done. Like it was really thought through. It was like, this is something that's not only, I think, good on this scope of like morality and good to watch, but actually good on this scope of like, this is good art to engage with that challenges, or, you're thinking about it the day after, because it's like, man, the way he did that, or the way it led to that, or they left that linger and they tied it at the end. It's like, that's art you want to kind of meditate on and like enjoy and consume that way.
Right.
I think Netflix is just like, it's such a low bar where it's
There's
like,
pumping out
it's a documentary on mushrooms, or a documentary
Dude,
on
that's
like,
actually good though. That's actually the fungus documentary. Dude, it's actually crazy.
But you know what I mean? Like we're just want something to turn our brain off for 3 hours or 2 hours. It's like, I don't know. I think we should be discerning in that too.
Yeah.
Of like what we are consuming.